Hi guys, and welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, and welcome either way. So I'm just gonna go close a window. Of course, when I want to film, a truck goes by the window. So today I am going to bring you a tag, which is the first time I've done one on my channel, but I really enjoy the sort of concept of if you like this, try that. But I think that I'm going to try and put a spin on it, and I'm going to do a sort of genre flip edition. So if you like an element of one book in a certain genre and you were looking to find that element elsewhere, I'm going to recommend a book from another genre that I think has that element. So let's get into it. So if you liked The Silence of the Girls for the vibes and the being in the head of a woman knowing that she's sort of under the power of a man in her situation and her rising above that and finding strength in herself and her situation, then I think you'll really enjoy Damsel. These two books I found very, very similar when I was reading. I can't remember which one I read first, but when I was reading one and then reading the other, I was like, oh wow, that really reminds me of the feeling of being in the head of the main character. So The Silence of the Girls is a ancient Greek retelling looking at the story of Achilles and the Trojan War, but from the perspective of the women, mostly from Briseis, who was stolen from Achilles by Agamemnon, starting off their whole argument in the Iliad. And Damsel is essentially a retelling of the damsel in distress fairy tale, but with sort of a modern lens of what it means to be rescued by a man who then assumes that he has ownership of you. I think I can draw a lot of parallels between these two, and if you've enjoyed one, I think you'll really enjoy the other. If any of these books I can reach so I don't have to edit in the photo, I will do, but I think a lot of these are going to be on high up shelves. So if you enjoyed The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, which I know is on my unread shelf, but I have read this just so long ago that I'd need to reread it if I was to continue in the rest of the series. So if you liked this book or this series for the fact that you get such a well-rounded perspective on so many of the characters that it's really difficult to see any one character as totally a villain, then I think you'll really like The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton. So this book is dystopian. It's set in a future of this world, or is it its own world? But this is in the genre. The Queens of Innis Lear is in the fantasy genre. Hi guys, Editing Cara here, just to pop in because I realised I didn't actually tell you what The Queens of Innis Lear was about. It is a retelling of King Lear, but from the perspective of his daughters. Okay, back to the video. And I really think that if you enjoyed one, you'd really like the other for that aspect. So the next one is more of an author thing. So I think if you enjoyed anything by Terry Pratchett, who is, in my opinion, the master of absurdism to write commentary in the fantasy genre, then I think that you would really enjoy Jonas Jonasson if you were looking for that absurdism element but done really cleverly, because I've seen a bunch of authors try to do this. It does not work, but in this sort of contemporary space, I think that Jonas Jonasson is the best voice in this genre for absurdism. And I would also recommend Douglas Adams if you wanted to try out science fiction and wanted those elements. Again, I think that he is one of the best, if not the best, in the science fiction genre for writing absurdism in his writing. His most famous book being The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which uses absurdism to look at almost like the development of humankind as a species in the views of a lot of aliens. It was a very, very weird ride, but I really recommend any of these authors' books. Where is... I don't know. These two books, one contemporary fiction and one fantasy, I think deal both really interestingly in the theme of learning to move on or live without someone once they've died. I think that I'd also include Tell the Wolves I'm Home in that sort of vein as well, if you like both of these too. So I'll Give You the Sun is about a set of twins, and it's following them in two different timelines, and in the future timeline they have done unforgivable things to each other, and you as a reader don't know what those are. And this is very artistically driven. It's written in a very, how to describe it? You very much feel like you're in the head of an artist when you're reading this, is what I'll say. But this was really, really good. And Life After Love is a short story, essentially following a man who moves into a flat and finds his flat is haunted, and then him getting to know his sort of ghost roommate, and his roommate learning to accept his death. I think I might be giving you the wrong idea. It is kind of a romance still, so this one I think pairs with this one very well. Something that I forgot to add here, and another thing that draws these books together, especially with the book Tell the Wolves I'm Home, is that all of these books deal with having a relationship that other people don't recognise or see as valid, I would say. But yes, I would recommend these books in tandem. Now, I know these are going to look like a weird pairing, but please bear with me. I reckon if you enjoyed Almost Like Being in Love, I think you'd really like Rules for Vanishing. So I'll tell you why these two are very similar. Both of these are told in mixed media, and you uncover the story by reading into the mixed media elements, and it's almost like piecing together the narrative yourself. This one is following two boys in their, I think, final year of secondary school, or high school as I guess it would be called in America, and how they're very different from each other, but they end up falling for each other. Then they grow distant, they grow apart as they both go away to college, and one of them realizes that he's still in love with the other and needs closure for that relationship. And I read this quite a number of years ago, but something that really, really drew me to this was the passion that the main character had, or one of the main characters had, and I really loved the format. But if you are into that sort of format but want something that's sort of horror, then I would totally recommend Rules of Vanishing by Alice Marshall. So this is so fascinating in its mixed media element, because you are finding out slowly the truth, or what people believe to be the truth, and you may have a recording from a video and then a recording from an interview, and those things don't quite match up, and it's very easy to get very, very confused because of that style of narrative. This is following a girl whose sister went missing, and she knows exactly where her sister is. Her sister followed this myth that's in the town, following someone called Lucy Gallows down the Ghost Road, and this road is only open once a year, and she takes a bunch of her friends with her to go down the road after her sister and go rescue her. And this has such a creepy atmosphere. I didn't know where it was going. There's lots of rules that these characters have to follow, and not everyone makes it out alive. So again, weird pairing, but I like both, so maybe you will too. Why can't I remember where any of my books are? I mean, they're alphabetical order, so you'd think this would be easier to do. Okay, I can't find the rest of them, but my next is another sort of three-way recommendation. So if you really enjoy books where the narrative style is told through letters, either kind of one-way letters as if they're told to the reader, or two-way letters, If you enjoy that in a really contemporary setting, I would really recommend Perks of Being a Wallflower. Now, this is a quite popular contemporary book about a boy coming of age, finding people who he really relates to, and sort of learning, I don't know, life lessons. I don't think this book has much of an inherent plot, but if you enjoy that in that contemporary setting, a more a more historical setting where I really got the same vibes was The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. Now, this one is about a black woman called Celie and how she really learns to find the power in herself to get through her situation. It's queer, she falls in love with a woman, and it sort of brings together a bunch of black women and how they support each other. When was this set? I'll put the date here as to when this was said, but this was also really good and had that element. She starts the book writing to God, and the people that she's writing the letters to changes throughout the course of the novel. And if you wanted a kind of more fantastical version, but again quite historical, is War Horses of Letters. And this is a book that was transcribed from a play or a radio show of the same name. I can't quite remember now. I read this ages ago, but it's still really stuck in my head. And it essentially follows two horses who start being pen pals to each other. I know that sounds super weird and super juvenile, but it's really not. It was really cleverly done and very, very amusing. But both of these horses get drafted for the war on opposite sides. So it's both a sort of commentary on war and romance and being at odds. And it was such a really interesting read. But again, the whole thing is told through letters between these two horses. And that was during one of the Napoleonic Wars, I believe. I'd have to look back at the book to confirm that. So another of what might seem like an odd pairing, if you really enjoyed We Have Always Lived in the Castle, now this is very much about two siblings who get on very well as a pair. They work very well together, and both of them, or one of them, has some funny tics or funny sort of ways of going about how she does things, but they work very well together, and a man comes on the scene and really changes their relationship and has very distinct opinions on how the siblings should be acting, and sort of imposes himself on that situation. And until I sort of saw the story like that, I didn't realise how similar it was to The Caretaker by Harold Pinter. Now, I personally didn't like The Caretaker. I didn't like how it was done, but it essentially follows that same, or a very similar narrative. You have two siblings who work really well together as a pair, are very close, and they pick up a homeless man and try to sort of do good by him and to support him and make sure he's okay. And he has very specific opinions on how he should be treated and how things should be run. And yeah, I do think they are quite similar. So if you liked one, maybe try out the other. I did have one more, but looking at it now, I think I was just trying to come up with a certain number of recommendations rather than thinking of things that could actually really be compared to each other. So let me know if you like this style of video. I really enjoyed putting this list together, and let me know of any other tags that you'd like me to do. I will see you in the next video. Bye.